Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's back up over 107K and Texas just aped in with taxpayer money. Congress is Frankensteining two crypto bills because why regulate once when you can confuse everyone twice? And Michael Saylor wants to mortgage your house with Bitcoin math. All this and more on today's show. Let's go! Good morning, my decentralized degenerates, fiat escape artists, and everyone still trying to convince their boss that staying liquid isn't code for day drinking. I'm Hank Hudson reporting live from California, where your Pilates coach runs a multi-sig, your ex started a breakup DAO, and your Wi-Fi guy sells mining rigs out of his Prius. It's Wednesday, the charts are twitchy, the Fed's cryptic, and somewhere, probably in a flotation tank, Michael Saylor's buying another stack because the moon looked bullish. Now, before we dive into the data swamp and pray Bitcoin doesn't yeet itself under six figures again, make sure to smash that like button like it just rugged your favorite L2, and follow RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV everywhere you doom scroll instead of working. Now, whether you're watching from a co-working crypto cave, a Telegram group that thinks Ripple is freedom, or a WeWork with a do not tokenize sign taped to the fridge, crack that Celsius, refresh your wallet, and let's see what the market vomited up overnight. But first, this morning's market rundown. Let's go. All right, it's Wednesday. Let's see how the numbers are looking. Oh, okay, pretty good. Bitcoin right now feeling the love, sitting at over $107,500 a coin. It looks like the market is reacting favorably to a lot of this Iran-Israeli news coming from President Donald Trump, and the Bitcoin price is loving it. Ethereum not doing quite as hot, sitting still below that $2,500 mark right now at about $2,420. Not feeling the same love that BTC has gotten on this Wednesday morning. XRP not doing a lot itself, right around that 219, 220 mark. Cardano still creeping down 2% this morning, right around 57, 58 cents a coin. And Dogecoin, also a whole lot of nothing, sitting at about 16.5 cents a pop. In TradFi, let's see, the Dow Jones sitting padded about 43,000. The NASDAQ up almost a half percentage point this morning, right at about 19,980, sitting right beneath that $20,000 mark. The S&P also not doing a whole lot, sitting above 6,000, almost at 6,100. MicroStrategy, it is feeling the love with Bitcoin this morning as it's up almost 2%. Coinbase also up almost 2%, sitting around $351 a share. Tesla not having the best morning. I think right now Elon is quietly crying while playing a game of Diablo in the dark. That seems to be what he does, as Tesla's down over 4.5% this morning. Nvidia is up nearly 3%, and GameStop still sitting in the doldrums right around that $23 mark. We got a lot on today's show. When we come back, we have our special guest of the day to go over our bull run stories with us, so stay tuned. We'll be back with that and more right after this.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
All right, welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run, and we have a special guest joining us today for the bull run. And our special guest, isn't just designing posters. He's designing Bitcoin history. He's the artist in residence at Bitcoin Magazine, the visual architect behind Bitcoin 2020 and 2021, and a longtime creative powerhouse at BTC Inc. He's turning decentralized finance into decentralized design, and now he's building the world's first Bitcoin museum in Nashville with no roadmap, no tax status, no insurance, and absolutely no chill, but in the best way possible. Please give a big blockchain report welcome to today's guest and the man who makes Bitcoin look like the revolution that it is, Tommy Markeski. Tommy, welcome to the show. The audience is excited to have you here, and so am I. How are you this morning?
Wow, great. Yeah, that's quite the intro. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, yeah, no, we are excited to have you here as well. Tommy, you, my friend, have been deep in the creative side of Bitcoin for years now, from early design days to becoming artist in residence at Bitcoin Mag, and now helping launch a full-blown Bitcoin museum. For folks who don't know the full backstory, how did all this start for you? Give us a little bit of that background.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been at Bitcoin Magazine almost 8 years now. So I started summer 2017. I started as a graphic designer. I've kind of been an artist and a designer my whole life. But that's kind of when I started getting into Bitcoin, and working at Bitcoin Magazine is probably the best like crash course orange pill experience anyone could ask for. And it's been super fun to watch this company from behind the scenes kind of grow up and get to where it is now. But yeah, I was kind of designer for some of the early conferences, but that ultimately moved into just me focusing on the art and the Bitcoin art scene, because the Bitcoin art scene many people don't even know exists. It's just this blossoming renaissance of art that hundreds of artists are participating in, and it's completely separate from like the NFT scene. But basically I worked my role into the point where I was making my own Bitcoin art and collecting other artists who are making Bitcoin art. And David Bailey, the owner of the company, he's a huge fan of art and Bitcoin art and collecting art. So like together we put our collections together, and we take this collecting things super seriously, and that's kind of how the Bitcoin Museum came to be. And you mentioned that we don't have any kind of tax status or anything like that. That's still the case, and I love telling people, we're like, this doesn't even exist. Like everything you see here is just it's a shrine for Bitcoin, but nothing more than that. Hopefully it becomes the full-fledged museum someday where you can come and buy a ticket to look around, or we're having meetups in the space. So it's growing up, and it's turning into something great. But it, just like Bitcoin, it has humble beginnings, and it's still very much in those early phases.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Tommy. I appreciate you giving us a little backstory there. We actually were at the Bitcoin conference in Vegas a few weeks or months ago. It seems like forever ago now. And they had a ton of Bitcoin art there. So I know there are people like yourself that are making this great new art on this amazing new asset class, and we're excited to have more of it coming our way soon. And I'm so glad to hear that what you do has nothing to do with any NFTs. I can't go through that pain again. That was bad. But we're excited to have you here. And
those exist.
There's still some Bitcoin NFTs?
Oh yeah. We love Pepe's and ordinals and stuff like that. Or I do. I only speak for myself, but not allergic to those.
Okay, yeah, I think I'm allergic to the Ethereum and Solana ones now. I've been bitten once, and I will not be bitten again. Those were troubling times for a lot of us. Well, we got a lot of stories to talk about today. Tommy, you ready to roll?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so our first story today, Texas has become the first U.S. state to begin buying Bitcoin and add it to a strategic cryptocurrency reserve. Governor Greg Abbott has signed into law the Senate Bill 21. Now, the bill directs the state to establish a Bitcoin reserve managed independently from its main treasury. The Texas government has already begun funding this reserve, and it has appropriated $10 million to immediately purchase Bitcoin. This makes Texas the first state to both pass legislation and actually allocate taxpayer money toward buying the orange coin. Now, New Hampshire was technically first to pass legislation, but Texas is the first to cut it a check. Now, several other U.S. states are currently debating whether to acquire cryptocurrencies using public funds, and this marks a notable shift in how state governments may begin treating digital assets. Texas lawmakers do not view Bitcoin as a speculative asset. In fact, they consider it a sovereign financial instrument worth holding long term, like gold, but harder to confiscate and less shiny. This move by Texas follows a separate announcement from President Trump, which proposed a federal cryptocurrency reserve. That one's designed to be budget neutral, funded through crypto asset seizures and freshly minted crypto bonds, because nothing says fiscal responsibility quite like using Dogecoin to back the national debt. Texas, meanwhile, said, screw it, we're using cold, hard taxpayer cash, baby. And so far, it's looking like a decent bet. Bitcoin's up 7% this year and nearly 15% over the last 12 weeks. Or, in other words, Texas might have just orange-pilled the entire union. So we're bringing Tommy back. Tommy, what was your first reaction when you heard that Texas actually bought Bitcoin with taxpayer money? What do you think?
I mean, it's just inevitable. It's cool to see, I guess, but at the same time, the strategic Bitcoin reserves of, whichever country, whichever state, companies buying up Bitcoin for their own treasuries, it's inevitable. But as a pleb who wants to stack more sats myself, I wouldn't really be too excited about it. Yeah, the number go up, but shouldn't you be out there orange pilling your friends, not cheering on Texas that they're going to gobble up all the Bitcoin? But then again, I guess when number goes up, it's easier to orange pill your friends. So it's a super vicious cycle that we're in. But I think it's inevitable. And as a pleb, I'm buy my art. Don't Texas, don't buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin art. That's what I would say.
I like it. Do you when you sell your art, do you accept payment in the form of Bitcoin, I hope?
Oh yeah. Well, that's funny you ask. So a lot of people ask, what does this art have to do with Bitcoin, or why is this Bitcoin art? Sometimes it's just simple as the artist is a Bitcoiner and only sells their art for Bitcoin, and it could be a painting of a flower or something, and you'd have to get metaphysical to think about what it has to do with Bitcoin. But at the end of the day, we're so early in this thing that when Bitcoiners make art and they say it's about Bitcoin and they sell it for Bitcoin and I buy it for Bitcoin, a lot of times that's all it takes to get it in this Bitcoin museum collection. So it's mostly everything in here was bought with Bitcoin.
Love to hear it. I think you just gave me a new idea. I think, patent pending, I'm going to start Bitcoin Banksy and just start copying Banksy things, but with Bitcoins in them, and then sell them for Bitcoin. Patent pending. Don't steal my idea, please.
Yeah, you wouldn't be the first. But it's not a bad idea.
Damn it. It's a catchy name, but yeah, it's probably already taken all the good ideas.
No, I actually have a piece in here somewhere that was a coworker of mine from years back that tried to do the exact same thing. And I think it was
nice.
He went by bank and then the letter C or something. I don't know. That one's in storage. No, but it's been done.
Okay, well, great minds, so to speak, think alike.
Exactly.
So I got to ask, why do you think Texas, of all states, was the first to actually pull the trigger on having a Bitcoin reserve and then funding it? Is it because everything is bigger there, or do you think there's other reasons behind it?
I mean, I think they like their freedom in Texas. I think Ted Cruz has been a Bitcoin proponent for a while now. I'm not really for or against Ted Cruz, but I pay attention to what he says when he talks about Bitcoin, and he's been talking about Bitcoin longer than a lot of politicians. So I think they probably just get it in Texas, and Tennessee gets it too. That's where I am now. I think the states that get it are going to be first to get it, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Texas absolutely does love freedom. I didn't know Tennessee was on the freedom train as much too, but they are technically in the South, and there's a lot of freedom there. How do you feel being like a Bitcoiner in Tennessee? Are you still feel like you're one of the minority, or is that the movement growing out in Tennessee as well?
Yeah, it's wild. I think it's definitely the movement growing, and I think the issue is that people don't realize how many other Bitcoiners are here in Tennessee, which is one of the core missions here at the Bitcoin Museum, is to have a place for meetups, a place for people to host their own whatever they need to do, or just a place to meet and have a coffee or something and talk about Bitcoin and feel like you're part of a community. There are other kind of Bitcoin. There's Bitcoin Park in Nashville. I'm sure a lot of your audience is aware of. They're great too. They do a lot of events, and they're less crypto friendly. We're not really like crypto either, but like we're not going to turn you away if you say blockchain or something like that. There's no like purity test to get into the Bitcoin Museum, and Tennessee is the volunteer state, and I think the voluntary opt-in nature of Bitcoin just goes hand in hand with the ethos of the state. And we have senators who are pro Bitcoin. They were at the conference. Yeah, I think it's one of the best kept secrets in Bitcoin that Tennessee and Nashville is like the place to be. And I'm trying to kind of make it not much of a secret anymore, but in an organic, not too hard to handle fashion. Like we got a nice building here, but it only holds 50 to 100 people on a good night. So we want to grow this thing nice and organic, but it's gonna blow up soon. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm glad to hear you're spearheading the cause out there. I love Nashville, performed at the Ryman years ago. It's a great place, and I'm glad to hear they're all about the freedom like the rest of us. Do you think that other states, maybe even Tennessee, will be following Texas's lead here in the short term, or is this more of a one-off moment in the short term, and we might have to wait a little while for some of these other states to get on board in the same way?
I definitely think it's going to happen faster than we anticipate. And every one of these companies that are advocating to be able to, do different things. I think like ultimately the way I look at it is the regulatory capture nature of all these things is kind of like the antithesis of what Bitcoin was created for in the first place. But is it inevitable that Bitcoin is money, and therefore every facet of our life, including governments and including financial institutions, obviously are going to have something to do with the new money? Yeah, of course. So is it cool? I don't think so. But is it going to happen? Yeah, for sure. So like, yeah, I would look at like states like obviously Tennessee, Florida, like the conservative states are probably going to get it, and it's weird that it's conservative people that get Bitcoin before liberal people or whatever, but it just seems to be how it's playing out.
Yeah, I think eventually everyone everywhere is going to be orange pilled, but financial revolutions don't exactly happen overnight, so it's going to continue to take some time, to your point, and I agree with you on that. How big of a cultural shift do you feel like it is for a state government to treat Bitcoin like a long-term treasury asset instead of a speculative play, which it's kind of been known as for a while now by a lot of people?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I mean, and I think you can actually feel that they're genuinely interested, and it's not like a regulatory capture attack. But then again, like you got to be wary of all angles. I think ultimately we just want everybody to see Bitcoin the same way, as a level playing field for money that the whole world is on. So, instead of a negative sum game like the fiat dollar system, we have now a positive sum game that we can all be excited about, and we can just leave behind all the ails of the remnants of fiat, and hopefully war is one of those remnants, and taxation and all that, like, right. So I think the faster that these politician type people can come to Bitcoin meetups and be part of the gang, I think is better than, I don't know, the alternative, right?
Yeah, no, I can't. It's only a matter of time, but I will be honest, I'm going to miss the look of a crisp $100 bill, but that's okay. Maybe we'll figure out a way to make I like the Bitcoin coins. I almost wish these existed just because I like holding things.
Dollars are just sats now, right? So that's one of my main thesis is the sats, or the dollar sign is an S because it's actually the sats symbol. And in the future, we're just going to call sats dollars, and we won't even remember what a dollar was. It'll just be like slang for, the smallest denomination of a Bitcoin. And then, I think once we get there, that's post hyper Bitcoinization time, and we're looking at obviously $100 million Bitcoin price. So we have 1,000x to go from there. So hard not to be bullish, and that should be easy enough to orange pill people with. But yeah, I think we'll still use dollars, and the dollar will just be kind of like a layer two for, however these stable coins end up shaping up. But maybe there'll be paper wallets, and you'll still have that kind of a thing, and maybe that's what the
I
paper
love
dollar was for.
I love the idea of the dollar sign actually becoming like the symbol for Satoshi in the future. That does feel like something I might have seen like predicted in a Simpsons episode from 10 years ago that ends up coming true, like so many of their prognostications do. But we'll have to wait and see for that one, I guess. But I love that idea. Stay tuned with me, Tommy. We're going to be right back to you because we have this next story on the Genius Act that I'm going to want to chat with you about, because it recently made history, the Genius Act, by passing the Senate 51-23 and is now in the House. And because DC can't resist a good plot twist, lawmakers are thinking of fusing it with the Clarity Act. Yes, the Genius Act might get tied to the Digital Asset Market Clarity Act of 2025. Because if crypto regulation wasn't confusing enough, let's throw in a naming convention that sounds like we're passing new AI personalities. Now, together, these two bills aim to bring long overdue rules to the Wild West of U.S. crypto policy. Tom Emmer, one of the few people in Congress who knows what a ledger is, says the bills should move in tandem. He believes that combining them gives the U.S. its best shot at finally having a unified framework for how all digital assets are bought, sold, or traded. Things that every other country, every other major country, mind you, already figured out like 5 years ago. But not so fast here, okay? Because Donald Trump wants the House to pass the Genius Act as is, no extra toppings necessary, no amendments, no combos, no value meals. But why? Well, probably because his fingerprints and his family's stablecoin project at World Liberty Financial are already all over it. That's got some lawmakers squirming. Now, to keep the first family from mooning with meme coins, Senator Adam Schiff introduced the Coin Act, which would ban presidents and their families from making money off crypto while in office. Because if we've learned anything from history, it's that politicians don't do well with number go up. Still, if this legislative sandwich goes through, it could finally clean up the regulatory patchwork that makes it nearly impossible to launch a crypto business in the United States. Right now, every startup has to navigate 50 different sets of state laws, and none of them tend to agree on whether Ethereum is a security, a commodity, or a Pokemon evolution. Now, I really liked this picture, I'm sorry, that's Ethereum SAR. Now, a national rule book would speed up innovation, bring stability, and God forbid, maybe let Americans use crypto without needing a legal team on retainer. So, bringing Tommy back. Tommy, the Genius Act, in your view, why is this such a big deal that these two bills, the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, might be combined? Is that a good or a bad thing? What are your thoughts on that?
Just generally, I can't say I know everything about both bills. So, like, generally speaking, like, combining bills is usually not the answer. I think like we'd want to separate things into as many bills as possible is usually how I would prefer things. But I think the Clarity bill says something about like how people should be able to use crypto and all these things. And I think just that in itself is just like how, a problem in that it's, right from the get-go, like telling people how they should or could or can't use the stuff. Like we're, even within Bitcoin, we're having infighting about, how should Bitcoin be used, and like Bitcoin doesn't care. Like, I don't know. The same thing applies to crypto, right? So I think the government telling us how we should use these things, I think maybe we shouldn't regulate that part. The part about stable coins and how, they should be regulated, I think that's like a much more serious, like, that's going to affect global financial everything. And, the stable coin revolution or whatever we want to call it is upon us and all that. So that's like a much more serious issue, and trying to tack on like, oh, this is how you should use all crypto. We think we figured it out in 2025. We're just going to tack this on to the stablecoin bill. I don't think it's smart, but who am I I haven't read the bills. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think I get you. I mean, I'm always worried about, and you've seen it again, and when previous legislation has been passed in other arenas as well, they just start sliding in little other things into these bills that gets passed along. And if you kind of Frankenstein these two bills together, maybe they put in little things that fly under the radar that then get passed when if you kind of did these bills separately, you could object to one thing in the Genius Act or something, right? That then they can say, hey, we don't like this, we need to amend this or whatever. But if they want to pass both, I feel like there might be some people that have to acquiesce and be like, well, it's mostly good and we'll let this one fly in here, even though we don't like maybe this part of the Clarity Act as well. So I personally would like to see them kept separate, but any kind of progression at this point, I think we've seen this year, is usually a step forward, but oftentimes it's 2 step forwards, 1 step back, and that could end up being the case if these are finalized together, but we'll see. Only time will certainly tell, I guess, right? What are your feelings on as to what these types of legislations are saying about crypto's place in the US right now? I mean, the very fact that we're even seeing these kinds of legislations in the House and the Senate, do you feel like that's a big step forward? Did you think we'd even be here at this point this year?
That's a great question. Did I think we'd be here? I think like it's all happened so fast, but I've kind of seen it happen so fast that I'm not surprised anymore that it's continuing to happen so fast. I think, like you said, like this is going to be our, it's not just the future. It's happening. It's going to continue to happen. So to try and get it all done right now, like say that we figured it out, we're regulating it, like this is the rule, these are the rules, and you can't use crypto and like other than what the government says, is just like a non-starter and kind of idiotic in my mind. So it's, I don't know. I think like one step at a time, and one issue at a time is the way to go, and to try to jam in like we've solved how to regulate crypto. That's regulatory capture in my mind. And the first sentence in the Bitcoin white paper says we're doing this so that we don't have to use financial institutions anymore. And if the financial institutions capture Bitcoin and do to Bitcoin what they did to gold, or make Bitcoin, harder to use without coming up against violence. I think that ultimately that's where we're heading if we're over-regulating crypto. So I'm always going to be against these omnibus crypto bills or whatever.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about, so you mentioned like these financial institutions, right? And we see them now. JP Morgan is starting to provide crypto exposure to its clients, even at the acquiescence of Jamie Dimon, who's certainly not about it. The government is now jumping on board. And the whole thing with Bitcoin, right, is it was supposed to be decentralized, but now we have big companies, big banks, big governments jumping in. Do you think that's any kind of problem and kind of goes against the main ethos that Bitcoin had going forward of being decentralized? Or is this maybe a good and even necessary thing to get the kind of adoption we want to see from Bitcoin on a global scale?
Yeah, again, I think it's just inevitable, and we have to just deal with it one way or the other, that like Bitcoin's money and everybody's going to want to have as much money as possible. And now the money is finite. So, the race to accumulate as much as possible has begun, and all these treasury companies and banks, and they're all in the race. They've been in the race for a while. They've been fudding it the whole time. Now they're not fudding it anymore. I think it's fine because the cat's out of the bag, and in order to amass all this Bitcoin, they're going to have to buy it from somebody who was early and is going to be rewarded for understanding Bitcoin and holding it this long. And I think the circular economy will play out however it will. But is it a good thing to try to get all the Bitcoin in the hands of 100 companies or 50 companies or 50 families or whatever it is? Like, I don't think so. I think that's kind of back to the square one problem that Bitcoin was created to solve. So I just personally, like, I see it happening. I say, oh, that's cool. Maybe number go up. That's great. And that's kind of the idea. Like, the number is going to go up. Like I said, 1000x from here is the base case for hyper Bitcoinization. But as a pleb, like, let's get more excited about like pleb wins and like BitAxes finding blocks and stuff than like JP Morgan buying $1 billion worth of Bitcoin because they just were able to print $1 billion, like
Right.
that's just me.
No, no, I totally understand that. And we can't talk about this without talking about the ace or joker in the hole, depending on how you want to think about it, which of course is President Donald Trump. He wants this legislation passed quickly. But some lawmakers, and understandably so, are nervous because of his family's crypto ties. Do you think that that kind of political baggage, specifically with Trump and his family, Trump Media, World Liberty Financial, does that help or hurt Bitcoin, do you think?
I mean, my personal stance on like crypto in general is that it's all kind of a road that leads to Bitcoin. And I think President Trump is just on his Bitcoin journey, and it's clear like we've seen him go from anti-Bitcoin in his first term to pro-Bitcoin now. He freed Ross on day one. He was very I mean, he's the only reason Ross is free right now. I think is that's as pro Bitcoin as it gets, in my opinion. But like I said, he's on his crypto journey, so all roads lead back to Bitcoin. We're seeing it happen in real time, and it's funny if you've been on that journey yourself. It's scary if you haven't, and I guess like it makes sense. It's easy to just point and say like, oh, this is insider this, or it's corruption, but I don't know. I think it's him and his family going through the journey of understanding what Bitcoin is, and as entrepreneurs and people who've done a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Trump has, done casinos and hotels. Like, of course, he's going to do a crypto exchange at some point. Like, is it good or bad for Bitcoin? I think it's interesting that it's come up in this context. The president of the United States and his family has a crypto exchange. Like, that's, I didn't think I'd be able to say that a few years ago. No.
Right. Does that feel a little bit kind of like maybe two steps forward, one step back, and maybe that's really the best thing we can ask for right now, in the sense that we have this president who's claiming that we are going to be the crypto superpower of the world, and he's the first crypto president, et cetera, but then he's also putting his hands and feet and entire body and family personally into, like you said, exchanges, their own Bitcoin treasury reserves for Trump Media, et cetera. Do you think that only fuels the fire of people that are against the idea of cryptocurrencies? But is it also maybe we need that right now, because otherwise these regulations and stuff wouldn't be put in place as fast as they have been, because we do have a pro-crypto president? Like, ultimately, do you think that this is a good thing for Bitcoin and crypto as a whole, having the president be so involved, even if it means there are going to be some people that are like, wait a second, this seems fishy? Like, overall, do you think this is a net positive?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin being anti-fragile like it is, it needs to go through these tests. And I guess like President Trump making himself the target to be regulatory attacked for doing these things is like you said, is it two steps forward, one step back, or is it one step forward, two steps back? Because he is kind of making it okay in the minds of many people to do Bitcoin and crypto, and he's accepted Bitcoin, and that's huge as far as like just globally people accepting Bitcoin as a thing and as important as it is. But then, like you said, he's also opened himself up to a lot of regulatory attack, which if they can do to him, like he always reminds us, they can do to us. And so it could go one way or the other. But I think, again, it's inevitable. Bitcoin needs to be attacked in these ways so that we can get past the attacks and be stronger for them. And Trump seems to like to be that target, I guess. No pun intended.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. It's proving that Bitcoin is even more battle tested than it had been in the past. And if there's one person that's ready to deflect all of the attacks, it is certainly Teflon Don. So I think you made some good points there.
That's why he's becoming a hero for Bitcoin.
What's that?
I'm saying that's why he's kind of become a hero for Bitcoin. Like, he's doing the unpopular thing as he's learning in real time. And it's just, you can't help but be excited to watch the president of the United States do that. You know, if you're a Bitcoiner, even no, even if you don't feel strongly about him as a person, it's just exciting to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think despite adding some fuel to the fire of some of those detractors out there, he's definitely been a net positive and is leading us in that 2 steps forward, maybe 1 step back situation. So yeah, I think I agree with you on the whole. I think he's been a good thing, but let's see, we're only 6 months into the presidency, so hopefully it continues on a similar trajectory, at least as far as Bitcoin regulation and putting guardrails in place so that we can get this adopted on an even larger scale. Hang tight with me, Tommy. We're going to go to this next story. I'm bringing you right back. As the U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency, or FHFA, is now exploring the use of Bitcoin as collateral for home mortgages. Now, the FHFA director, Bill Pulte, announced that the agency will begin formally studying how cryptocurrency holdings might be used to qualify for a mortgage. The proposal would allow crypto holders to leverage assets like Bitcoin to purchase homes. Now, this approach avoids triggering taxable events that occur when crypto is sold for fiat. Here's how it works, okay? Borrowers deposit their Bitcoin with a lender. The lender locks up the crypto during the term of the loan. Now, in exchange, the borrower receives a fiat mortgage as long as they make their payments on time and the value of the collateral holds. The borrower retains ownership of their Bitcoin. Now, this would be a major shift for the FHFA, which oversees institutions like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and the Federal Home Loan Banks. Now, Anthony Pompliano has supported the proposal, calling it a smart way to bring Bitcoin and stablecoins into mainstream housing finance. Pulte, for his part, is a vocal crypto supporter. In fact, his financial disclosures show personal holdings of between $500,000 and $1 million in Bitcoin and Solana. Still, volatility is still very much a concern because if the price of Bitcoin drops significantly, borrowers could face a margin call and be required to post more collateral. Michael Saylor, of all people, has weighed in with a proposed solution to all of this. He offered the FHFA Strategy's internal Bitcoin credit model, a framework that evaluates volatility and loan duration to assess credit risk. Now, the model could provide a structure for assessing crypto-backed loans, potentially helping borrowers bypass legacy restrictions from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It is worth noting that crypto-backed borrowing isn't new. Coinbase already allows users to borrow USDC using Bitcoin as collateral. But if the FHFA adopts these standards, it would represent a major step toward legitimizing Bitcoin in federal housing policy. Now, high net worth investors could finally hodl their bags and get beachfront property at the same time. And retail buyers, they might get a shot at owning a home without rage selling their Bitcoin at the bottom. Now, for context, monthly mortgage payments for medium-priced U.S. homes have jumped 89% in the last 5 years. So if your down payment feels like a scam, maybe collateralizing your crypto isn't the craziest idea. After all, if TradFi is going to keep moving the goalposts, we might as well bring our own ball, and this ball, it's made of Bitcoin. All right, bringing Tommy back. Tommy, what do you think about the idea of using Bitcoin as collateral to buy a home? Is this smart? Is it risky? Maybe somewhere in between?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer a time in the future where you can just buy a home with Bitcoin and it's like par for the course normal behavior for somebody to want to sell their house to you for a lump sum of Bitcoin. That's that. Again, I think regulatory capture is kind of the theme of all this, but at the same time, is it capture or is it adoption? Right? I think Bitcoin is called the Trojan horse because sometimes the adoption looks like capture, or I don't know. I think, is it good for a number go up, and is it good for acceptance within these financial institutions that they're finally here to that point? I think yes, but again, it just kind of proves the whole legacy financial system is a layer 2 on top of Bitcoin, trying to leech the value back out of it for to keep itself alive like a parasite. So I mean, in my mind, is this good? Yeah, but only if we kind of like see it for what it is, which is like another lane for potential regulatory capture and you know, bad news if you don't do what the government wants now that you're in this contract where the bank is your landlord.
Yeah, totally.
And has your
how
Bitcoin.
would you feel like, and has your Bitcoin, right? Now, the very fact though, I mean, if they're holding it though, and it does increase, at least you're not giving up your whole Bitcoin, right? As opposed to have to sell it and then have to deal with taxable events. And God knows none of us want to do that, especially if we bought way low and we sell our Bitcoin and all of a sudden, if this is years from now and Bitcoin's hundreds of thousands of dollars, like I don't want to pay capital gains on that. So I think it's a nice option to have, right?
Yeah, sure. And I think you just said the part that I'm kind of getting at is like, yeah, this magical wand that makes this Bitcoin transaction a taxable event or not a taxable event is kind of like the point of like these moves reveal the system as a layer two for Bitcoin already. They're just trying to regulate it as such so that they can leech your wealth away from you and trick you into not custodying your own Bitcoin and all these things. So yeah, it's like, yeah, does it sound like a good deal? Like you get less stolen from you at the end of the year if you just, you know, give up now. Yeah, some people will think that's cool, but I don't have a mortgage. I just rent from my landlord and I let him deal with the banks, and maybe that's smart, maybe that's not, but I'm just waiting for that day where like, you know, 1 million sats buys me a $1 million mansion, and that 10-minute transaction is over, and now all I have to do is pay property taxes or whatever to make it real. So until then, number go up. Yeah, this sounds good, but I'm not going to be involved in giving the bank my Bitcoin for a mortgage or whatever. I'd rather give it to a pleb that owns a house that is selling me that house for Bitcoin or built a house or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Even if it means that you no longer have your own Bitcoin anymore?
Well, yeah, I know I'm going to have to sell the Bitcoin to buy a house eventually, right? Like I think these games of like hold your Bitcoin or like keep your Bitcoin forever if you let somebody else hold it for you type of thing is ultimately like not going to work out for everybody, I think.
Interesting. How would you explain to someone outside of crypto why this type of thing, using Bitcoin for a mortgage, could be a game changer for the industry going forward? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's because if you're familiar with like how these tax advantage, you know, moving money from one thing to the other helps you get away from capital gains and this and that. If you know how all that works, which, you know, rich people do, but the average person doesn't, then this makes Bitcoin a lot more attractive for you. And it makes you, oh, this is real. Like I can actually do this now. I don't have to think of this as like a drug dealer currency or whatever. It's, you know, the verification from the bank does go a long way. And there's a trickle down effect from that. But like for the average person, I'm not sure they're even going to be like looking down unless they have a lot of Bitcoin. They happen to be an early Bitcoiner, and this is now they can finally get the home the way they wanted to. Then this is a win for them. But I think that's an edge case. I think, like you said, this is just kind of the regulatory stamp of approval that gets us to that next point.
Mm-hmm. Do you
which
feel
is more
like,
regulatory stuff?
Right. But with regulatory stuff does come an element of, what's what I'm looking for, like validity in the minds of like like in everyday people, right? Like I guess my question is, do you think that this type of thing helps legitimize Bitcoin in the eyes of, you know, everyday people and traditional finance, or are we still a little early for this kind of crossover?
I think you're right. It does legitimize, and that's that trickle down effect from like the CNBC people treating it different, like your average Joe that watches, and you know they're going to treat it different. I think, yeah, again, it's inevitable, and I hope it leads to more people going down that rabbit hole and experimenting with crypto so that they're not just buying off Coinbase and letting them hold it for them. You know, I think that's another part of like NFTs that I think are cool. It actually forces you to like see a JPEG move from one place to another, and now you totally understand like what just happened when you sent that crypto Bitcoin transaction or whatever, sometimes I think it takes a little bit of wrapping your head around what's actually happening to see how simple it is. And then once you see how simple it is, you start to realize that the regulatory part of it is just like, the government trying to catch up and like, you mentioned that like, the reserves are seized Dogecoin. I think it's hilarious. Like stolen Dogecoin is like the government is trying to catch up on years of fudding this thing while the cat got out of the bag. Now they're trying to put the guardrails on. Is it legitimizing? Yes, in the eyes of the people that want the guardrails, and that's the majority. So yeah, and I'm not trying to be hostile with this show because I realize it's a more regulatory friendly finance show, and that's awesome. That's definitely not my side of the coin, so to speak. But I love that all this is happening because it's inevitable and it makes number go up, and number go up makes people flock to Bitcoin. But it's also like, it's just Wall Street games or whatever.
Yeah, no, I get it. I can never quite fully trust Wall Street, so it does make me a little apprehensive when they start getting involved with Bitcoin, which is supposed to be decentralized and a different beast than what we've seen from TradFi in the past. So I totally hear you on that. Last question on this, I would love to get your thoughts on. What do you think about Michael Saylor offering his company's Bitcoin credit model to the federal government? Is this helpful, or is this like a little wild? Because we do know he is the maxi of Bitcoin maxis.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate how bullish he is on Bitcoin, and I think he's ultimately a good force for Bitcoin. But again, he's that side of Bitcoin, the TradFi side of Bitcoin, the financial institutions are here type side of Bitcoin. And I think it's good to have people that understand that Bitcoin is the base layer of all like crypto. And when we get into this stablecoin revolution, realizing that it's not the stablecoin backed by the dollar, because the dollar is not backed by anything other than now the stablecoin. So the two things can't really back each other. So it's all really backed by Bitcoin at the end of the day. Educating people about that as we go through this transition is it's a big task. So I'm, good for him for taking it on. I wish him the best with that, and hopefully it doesn't turn south where, everybody needs to give up their Bitcoin, because now that the Bitcoin backs the dollar, we need a 6102 for Bitcoin type situation. But I mean, the Saylor approach is being duplicated everywhere now. So why not, states do it as well?
Yeah, no, I agree with you more. I'm excited to see what more other states are going to be jumping on the bandwagon, which I got a feeling, I think to your point earlier in the show, it's going to be a lot sooner than later based on the trajectory we're currently seeing right now. All right, gang, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with Tommy, and we're going to learn more about this Bitcoin Nashville Museum coming up in just a bit. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. And now we're going to get into the thick of things with my boy Tommy from Bitcoin Magazine, and we're going to switch gears. Tommy, thanks for chatting with us about those stories. There's always so much going on in the crypto and Bitcoin universe. We certainly appreciate another person's take on it other than my own. But I want to talk a little bit about you, my friend. You have been with BTC Inc. for years now. And I would love to know, how has your role evolved from graphic designer to full-blown creative force behind Bitcoin Magazine's brand? Tell us about that story.
Yeah, well, I guess, I started in 2017. We weren't even really doing Bitcoin Magazine as a thing back then. It was Distributed Magazine and Y Bitcoin, like the letter Y Bitcoin Magazine. Those were two print magazines that I, when I first started here, was working on. And those were kind of like Bitcoin 101 type stuff. And this was like, obviously 2017. So it's super appropriate to be putting that out there. It still is, but and then blockchain type stuff at that point. And then in 2019, we as a company kind of made the pivot to get back focused on Bitcoin only, really. And that's when we did the Bitcoin 2019 conference. I was able to work on that. And that was, an amazing experience, really a pivotal point for our company. And after that, COVID hit. So you had mentioned I something about I designed the 2020 conference. That's true, even though it didn't happen. The 2020 conference was canceled, COVID hit, and our company went from like 100 or so people down to like 15, or just a super skeleton crew during the early days of COVID. But then we were the first event back after COVID in 2021 in the Miami conference. And we relaunched our print magazine, the Bitcoin magazine print issues in 2022, shortly after that conference in Miami again. So yeah, it's been fun to see this company go like through the ups and downs, and now David Bailey is in, he's got the ear of the president. I think that's like, if you had told me that 5 years ago, I would have said no way. It's true. Like they have a pretty good relationship, and it's amazing that I can say that I know and trust the person who's advising the president mostly when it comes to Bitcoin, and he's my boss. Like that's pretty insane to me. So it's a dream job. It's been a dream job since day one. But I've kind of been able to evolve it, like you said, from like just a graphic designer in the weeds of like print layouts and graphics and stuff, to forming relationships with all these artists who are making Bitcoin art. And 2019 we had a super small art gallery, maybe 6 or 7 artists involved, and then by 2022 there were over 120 different artists and like hundreds and hundreds of artworks in the conference art gallery. And I had a role in curating those for the first few years. And now we have another person in staff who's their only job is to curate these art galleries. So that's kind of how much the Bitcoin art scene has blossomed, and it's been part of our conference kind of from day one, which leads to the museum, right? Because at one point we all kind of looked at each other and we were like, all this amazing art at our conferences, it's being auctioned. Like, why aren't we bidding on it? Why aren't we collecting it ourselves? And as an artist, I really appreciate other artists' work, and I want to collect when I see that it's being undervalued. So, undervalued to me is, I'm pretty crazy about how I value some of this Bitcoin art. And David Bailey's a lot the same way. So years of collecting art from our own conference art galleries and other artists sending me stuff is kind of accumulated into the Bitcoin Museum. And we got this building shortly before the Nashville conference in 2024, and it's across the street from the venue of the Nashville conference. And we moved in here with the intention of like being closer to the venue when we threw the conference. And it just happened to be such a beautiful building. You mentioned the Ryman Auditorium earlier. This building is about as old as the Ryman Auditorium. It's going to be 100 years old next year. It's a super classic brick building, and just beautiful on the inside, perfect for setting up this museum. And when we got this building, I just had to put everything up on the walls that we had, and that snowballed into just wanting to collect more and more. So like, we're not open to the public yet, but it's kind of being used as a private event space and our headquarters. And then whenever we can, we love to show it off to people who are in town, with the hopes that obviously soon it'll be open to the public and operating like a normal museum would.
That's so cool. Now, you said you guys all had an appreciation for all this different and emerging Bitcoin art. Who is the real brainchild behind that? Was it you? Was it David Bailey? Was it a collaborative effort of you guys seeing all of these emerging Bitcoin art and artists and saying we need a place to house all this? Or what was that process like?
I mean, it's all foggy now, but it feels like it was kind of a everyone looking at each other and thinking the same thing at the same time kind of thing about like, I mean, I will say
Yeah.
like I've been an artist my whole life, but I never really had the inspiration to make my own original artwork that, had a whole lot of meaning behind it that I could say like, other than commissions, obviously, like people would commission me to paint stuff.
Mhm.
But once I like found out about Bitcoin, started learning about Bitcoin, it's like, I love making art about Bitcoin and what that looks like to me. And when you see how other artists do it and how different it all is to each different artist, but then when you bring it all together, it's all super cohesive at the same time. It kind of snowballs in a way. So I mean, you ask who's the brainchild behind all this? I think like Bitcoin itself is kind of the brainchild behind all this because when people think the same thing at the same time and they just get it, they can't unsee it, and you just kind of have to you just got to do what you got to do. And I think like the Bitcoin art renaissance, the Bitcoin renaissance is we called it, we coined that in the 2022 art gallery. That's what we called it, Bitcoin renaissance. I think it's a real
Mhm.
thing. It's happening in real time, and I'm just like honored that I can have anything to do with it, even as a collector, but especially as an artist. I most likely am going up to New York this fall to be a part of a Christie's show that is related Bitcoin related. So
Cool.
like just like how the institutions are here, it's like the art TradFi institutions are here too. Like obviously Christie's and Sotheby's, and they've been doing NFTs, and now they're actually excited about Bitcoin specific art. So that's a huge signal. Yeah, I think this Bitcoin art movement is kind of just an organic thing that once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I'm just fortunate that I work at a company where they appreciate all this, and like it's something that is becoming a need to have instead of just a nice to have type thing. Is the cultural, like when you walk into the building type thing, you need to feel the vibe of it being a real true shrine for Bitcoin, as I like to call it. And it really is. It's probably the easiest place in the world to orange pill somebody if you just bring them into this building.
Very cool. Well, like the new old saying goes, great sovereign money minds think alike. So it sounds like it was certainly a lot of orange pillars in the same room looking at each other and thinking the same thing. And this museum just had to come to be. What kind of like artifacts or pieces are you and your team collecting for the museum? Is it more cultural, more text focused, a mix, something else entirely?
Yeah, great question. It's mostly Bitcoin art because of our connection to all these artists who've showcased in our conference over the years. But we do also have like some miners, some old early ASIC miners, and we have a bunch of bit axes. So we actually do have some hash rate coming out of this building, which is nice to say and to root on this small army of bit axes mining for us. We have Hal Finney's PGP Corporation work shirt. So like literally his like denim shirt that says PGP on it, and it was owned by him and then auctioned by Fran Finney. David won that one at auction, and it's here on the wall. That's just another example like of David seeing something that he knew was a historic artifact, and he wanted us to have control of it and put it in a museum where it belongs. So, and then this piece, or I don't know what's on the screen right now, but there's the skull of Satoshi that was actually donated to, I guess, donated to Bitcoin, however that works. But I guess it's in our custody now. So eventually, the skull of Satoshi will come to the Bitcoin Museum in Nashville. I have a cool idea for how to display that already in one of the back rooms. But other than art and a few like hardware devices, it's mostly like the oldest thing in here is issue one Bitcoin magazine from May 2012. And then the second oldest thing is like a ASIC miner from 2013. And then like everything else is kind of art that's been created Oh no, the oldest thing is the Hal Finney shirt because that's from the 90s, maybe even the 80s.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I think to answer your question, like we're looking for everything that's related to Bitcoin history, and we think we're pretty good curators, knowledgeable about that. What what's relevant to Bitcoin history, and we're just collecting with our own money, and hopefully someday, like we were, right to have the ultimate collection for Bitcoin history, and this will become the mecca for Bitcoin, whether it's in this building or somewhere else. This collection is just going to grow.
That's so cool, and I appreciate. I'm really happy you brought up the Skull of Satoshi one. I saw that at the 2025 conference in Vegas this year. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that this particular piece here was meant to represent how Bitcoin like sucks all the power out of the earth or something. They have like, so was this actually made by a like a no coiner initially, and now we've adopted it into like the Bitcoin art family as we're starting to learn that that information is in fact not true at all? Or do you have any of the backstory behind that piece?
Yeah, you summed it up. It's kind of like the perfect backstory. It was commissioned by Greenpeace to symbolize all the bad things about Bitcoin. But then as soon as the Bitcoin community saw it, they thought it was badass and like kind of flipped it on its head and used it as their profile pictures and stuff like that for a short period of time. And then, obviously like that whole campaign backfired and Greenpeace had to walk it back, and the artist ended up learning about Bitcoin along the way because they admitted that they were just commissioned and they didn't really know anything about Bitcoin when they made this piece. So it was, perfect backstory that way. But then to make that story even better, the Ripple people decided to buy it from Greenpeace and then donate it to the conference, basically, which I guess means donate it to BTC Inc. So it's currently in storage in Vegas right now so that it can be just easily brought back to the conference next year. A little alpha there. You'll get to see it again next year. But then after that, depending on where the conference is, it'll travel. And then I think the ultimate goal is for it to be like, an installation piece in our museum. But like, yeah, I think the best part about that whole story is that Ripple thought that by donating it to us, that all the Bitcoiners were going to like them all of a sudden, which, we're happy to receive this amazing $5 million art piece or whatever, but can't guarantee you that anyone's going to give a shit about that as far as like Ripple's, reputation goes. So I think it's just a icing on the cake end of the story. But yeah, you'll get to see it again next year at the conference. And it's just an iconic piece of Bitcoin history.
It is, and let's be real, you can't blame Brad Garlinghouse for trying, but I don't think he's going to be converting many Bitcoiners to the XRP.
Yeah, the olive
anytime
branch,
soon.
I think. Yeah.
Right. Nice try, Brad. So, as we continue through Bitcoin's maturation process over time, we're undoubtedly going to get more people that are interested in this art scene. If somebody is listening or watching the show and they've got an old miner or a ticket stub from the Miami conference or their own original Bitcoin artwork and they're interested in showcasing it, what would they do?
Yeah, people reach out to me all the time and I love it. I think keep reaching out to me. A friend and I have started an auction house called Satoshi House Auctions. So like people have been sending us their Bitcoin art for us to auction. There's another auction company called Scarce.City that has been doing it for years at our conferences. You could sell art through them, and then once you sell art through them, or if you sell your art for Bitcoin, or even if you don't, you make Bitcoin art, don't sell it. You wanna put it in the museum and say that it's in the museum. You can send it to me, and I can hold on to it. And if somebody is interested, I could be the middleman there, help you sell it. But like, I think we are looking for more historic artifacts than artworks at this point, just because we have so many artworks and I've got so much kind of flowing my way. But Yeah, like there's museum.b.tc is the website, and right now all it is just a like a form for you to drop me a message, and if you have yeah, like what it says here, artworks, hardware wallets, cassatious coins, hopefully unloaded at this point, because for security reasons we don't want just a lot of loaded cassatious coins laying around. But yeah,
Yeah.
we'll anything Bitcoin history related. We have a free Ross room. Obviously, Ross is free, but that room's not going anywhere. We're gonna get, all the Ross related history we can, so that we can tell his story to everybody we can. Yeah, we're always looking for more stuff, and like it says on here, we don't have I had to turn away a big piece because we don't have proper insurance and tax this and that, and all the all that stuff that we should have as a museum. We're still figuring out, but that's the beauty of it being the Bitcoin museum, is like it's a super Bitcoin thing. We don't even know what tax status means. You know what I mean?
I love to hear it. Simpler times. So, Tommy, we're going to have to let you go here in a sec. But before we do, we have a lot of our audience here. If they're watching and they're like, hey, this Bitcoin art sounds awesome. Where can I learn more about Tommy? Where can I find more of his work? Where can I send them so they can see all of the amazing things that you're creating over at BTC Inc.?
Yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Twitter. It's Young Gucci T at
Nice.
YungGuccit. I came up with that handle when I was in like the 10th grade or something like that, and never changed it. So you know, don't at me or whatever. But or my website is tommy.studio. I try to post all my artworks on there as they are complete. But yeah, I mean, I'm just pretty active on Twitter. If you want to know what I'm thinking, it's probably on there already. I'm probably should be less active on there, if I'm being honest.
You're not Elon. I'm sure you're doing fine. I think I recently checked. He has like almost 100,000 tweets, where it's like, how does anyone have that much time in the day? And also, Young Gucci T, was it? Did you use the Wu-Tang Clan name generator like Childish Gambino for that one? Or is that just like you were young and you just made it up?
I just made it up, and I was like kind of put on the spot. It was like high school like physics class made us get a Twitter because the teacher wanted to be able to like tweet like moon phases at us or some shit like that. It was something crazy like that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a Twitter way back in the day, and so seamlessly found Bitcoin Twitter. But yeah, I just haven't changed it, and people have referred to me as that before and like tagged me as that in articles and stuff. So I just don't want to like break the links.
Yeah. Well, Tommy, I got to say, it's been an absolute pleasure having you, and we really appreciate and respect all of the amazing things that you're doing to help flesh out the Bitcoin community, because it's not all just about the finance sides of it, right? There's a cultural aspect too, and what you're doing is a huge part of building that culture and continuing to build that culture for all of us orange coiners out there. So we really appreciate you and your time, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Pleasure was all ours, and you're welcome back anytime. Hopefully we'll catch up with you soon. Next time you got a big piece or something you want to exhibit, let us know. We'd love to showcase it here first.
All right, I'll definitely take you up on that.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tommy. It was a pleasure. We're going to go to break. When we're back, we have our resident chart shark and crypto wunderkind, Luca Pagano, who's going to help us make sense of the markets right when we get back.
Oh, it's beautiful, Hank. This is not financial advice.
All right, and we're back with one of my favorite people in the world, our resident chart shark and crypto wunderkind, Luca Pagano. Luca, welcome back to the show. It's beautiful to see you. I've missed you so much. Oh, the pleasure is all mine, my friend, and it's so good to have you because I need help making sense of what's going on these charts. Just a few days ago, I think it was even Sunday, we dipped below a 99. We're back up to 107 and a half. What are you seeing in the markets right now? What are the numbers telling you?
I mean, right now, I think this week honestly was beautiful because if we've seen something last week and we talked about it, it was the uncertainty and the cautiousness of a potential dip into the $100,000. Remember, we had marked out what we thought it was a bid zone, and for now, the market has reacted very, very nicely. For me, it's the candle we've seen on Monday is a very important one because it's a good reversal candle. So for the folks watching, as you know, a reversal candle is usually you want to see a candle that sort of eats the last ones and make them look like like they were trying to do something that they couldn't, to say the least. So that for me was very positive sign. And also, Hank, we must be aware that, of course, you've got all the context in the US and everything, but also we're at the close of the month this week. So it's a very important week for us.
One thing I've noticed in the charts, Luca, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is traditionally, this year has been a little bit interesting in and of itself, but traditionally, when Bitcoin shoots up, we see a lot of the altcoins rise with it. Most recently, that does not seem to have been the case. Last when Bitcoin was around this same level, it was like a week or 2 weeks ago, we saw Ethereum hitting around 2,800. All the other altcoins kind of rising with the tide. But right now, since this bounce back of Bitcoin in the last couple of days, that has not seemingly been the case. Ethereum right now still below 2,500. XRP 218. Cardano below almost 57 cents. What's going on here? Is this a testament to the Bitcoin dominance in the market overall, or what?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question because I think here we can see two important things, right? So on the Bitcoin side, okay, we have for me this beautiful push up, from April basically till the end of May. Then we had this retrace, which is now looking like a flag, basically, which is a continuation pattern, right? We had this, as we were saying, this beautiful dip into the 100,000s. We've seen that as a probable good bid zone. It definitely was. And if we see the weekly, 1 second before going into the altcoins, just to understand where are we at in Bitcoin, right? If we see the weekly, we're having this reversal weekly candle, which if we can close like on the zone and not like not pull back again, for me this is a very positive candle. Also in the monthly, we're seeing continuation right now, right? So things in Bitcoin, if we can maintain these levels, are definitely looking good, right? Now, if we see 1 second how Bitcoin has behaved against Ethereum, let's say, so one side of the coin is this, if you're seeing in red or in pink Ethereum, right? So what I believe happened also, Hank, is you had, since the last push up, you had some good recovery on altcoins. Remember, we talked about here on the FBTC, very negative sentiment that was probably gonna revert soon. We've seen this before. Now, if we compare it from the pullback, let's say, we're down, right, in altcoins. We can see that clearly against BTC, especially today, So that I think is very wary to. I mean, it's good to be aware of. If we go to the Bitcoin dominance as well, Hank, pretty quickly here, we can see that Bitcoin dominance is still not stopping. Remember, well, we have the 71 mark, which is very important for us at the long term, right? If we scoop out a little bit, we're still in a very good uptrend, and I think the context here on the on the political side, and that aspect plays in favor to BTC against altcoins for me, honestly, because it's a mix of uncertainty and and a good cause or a better cause to buy BTC against other assets, especially altcoin or whatever. So I think that's a very good thing to be aware of. It's not that altcoins look bad, but it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, and I know we only got you for a little bit of time this morning, so I'm going to one more question for you before we let you go today. During the most recent drawback that we saw this past weekend, Bitcoin broke beneath the 100K for the first time in I think something like 45 days. The fact that we broke 100K, is that a sign that that is no longer the floor or the support level that we should be expecting? Or the very fact that it bounced back up over that 100K and is now at 107.5 or whatever it is that indicative that that $100,000 mark in fact being the new level of support we should be expecting?
Beautiful question. For me, here, Hank, what I believe is that on the weekend we tested this $100,000. We even dipped a little bit below that. That is very, very healthy because it means that some were liquidated there, honestly. So what I believe here is that today it's a little bit easier to look at the charts because you've got this tested demand on $100,000. That should be your boundary, honestly. We should not come back again, at least in my perspective. This is not financial advice, but for me, if we come back again, I'm not anymore interested in bidding. I will be interested in probably risking off my position, right? That's my perspective. So we shouldn't come back to test this zone again. This was more than an enough test. What we should do is look maybe to consolidate a little bit here, and if we can break this continuation flag, for me, it's new highs, honestly. That's my perspective. Now the range has been much more defined, and it's better to trade.
Oh, absolutely. Let's trade places here for a second when I say it sounds beautiful, Luca. And I love to hear it, and I think our audience does as well. As always, Luca, an absolute treat having you here on the show. We love your expertise. If people want to get more of your chart analysis and insight, where can they find you?
We will be analyzing it at Luca at Roxom, and let's keep it up, Hank, and let's keep updated so we can trade the week.
Let's do it, buddy. All right, Luca, always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the show today. And when we get back, stay tuned because we're going to talk about what's going on in India, France, and South Korea and what that means for Bitcoin and you in just a sec. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. It's time for a little blockchain without borders, where we talk about what's going on in other parts of the world. Right now, India's 2025 union budget, well, it didn't change a thing when it comes to crypto taxes, because when you've already gone full medieval, why walk it back? Now, in the Income Tax Act, all profits from virtual digital assets, including Bitcoin and Ethereum, are taxed at a flat 30%. That's 30% with no deductions. The only thing you can subtract is the original purchase cost. Everything else, sorry fam. Oh, and there's also a 1% tax deducted at source, or TDS, on all transactions over 10,000 rupees, or about 115 bucks. And a 4% access tax on top of that, calculated from the total liability tax. And you thought Ethereum gas fees were bad, huh? Try Indian tax forms. So for 2025 and 2026, anyone dealing in crypto has to fill out a new section of their income tax return called Schedule VDA. It requires you to list every transaction with purchase dates, prices, and sale values. Crypto exchanges also have to report this data to tax authorities. And if the tax man finds unreported gains during a raid, well, Section 158B says you're now in block assessment territory, which means your crypto gets treated like cash or jewelry and taxed as such. But the worst part of all of this is that crypto in India isn't even taxed like a capital asset. It's lumped in with gambling and lotteries because, of course, it is. And if you screw up the paperwork, unreported gains can be taxed at 60% with penalties of up to 200%. You might also get interest charges on top of that, or even jail time, up to 7 years in fact. So yeah, you can now go to prison for forgetting to report your Pepe coin. Great. Now, India's Central Tax Board has stepped up enforcement with mass notices to crypto traders. The reporting system includes cross-checking crypto exchanges, TDS filings, and third-party financial data. Losses? Well, sorry, you can't deduct them. You also can't offset one crypto loss against another, and you get 0 tax breaks for holding long-term. India doesn't care if you've held for a day or a decade, same 30% rate. Also, international exchanges may soon be required to report Indian users via OECD's crypto asset reporting framework. So hiding your bags on Seychelles exchange won't work long for this one. Since TDS was introduced, over 5 million Indian users fled to offshore exchanges. In just 1 year, they traded over $42 billion worth of crypto abroad, and Indian exchanges saw their app downloads, traffic, and revenues collapse. Wazir X's NFT marketplace made $6 in its final month before shutting down, and that's definitely not a typo. I meant $6 US dollars. WeTrade halted operations too, blaming the regulatory nightmare out there. Now, India's tax regime has pushed users, capital, and innovation all offshore. Meanwhile, Dubai and Singapore are becoming global crypto hubs. In Singapore, crypto profits are tax-free. In Dubai, no capital gains tax unless you're a business making over 100K. India, on the other hand, is taxing crypto like it's a moral failure. But there remains hope. Indian regulators are reportedly reconsidering policies after global criticism. A reduction in TDS and changes to loss treatment could bring back users. Until then, India's crypto industry remains shackled, and the global market keeps moving without it. Now, for Bitcoin, every time a major country cracks down, it reinforces the case for sovereign money. Bitcoin thrives in chaos, especially in tax chaos. And in South Korea, well, they're doing what no Western regulator ever would dare, and that's actually looking into how much crypto exchanges are charging people. According to local media, the Financial Services Commission, South Korea's top financial regulator, is launching a full-on probe into the transaction fees slapped onto users by domestic crypto platforms. It's part of a broader plan under the country's new president, Lee Jae-myung, a guy who actually campaigned on a pro-crypto agenda, and apparently he meant it. His promise: cut trading costs, make crypto cheaper for young people, and do something that vaguely resembles consumer protection without killing innovation in the process. Just absolutely wild concept. The FSC says they're kicking things off with a fee survey that looks into how Korean exchanges charge users, how much they're raking in, and whether they're overcharging compared to global platforms. Or, in other words, hey, are we getting robbed? An important question, and no one in the US has asked out loud since Coinbase quietly doubled fees and gave us a new app icon as a consolation prize. The FSC told reporters they haven't decided on a target fee just yet. They'll compare domestic rates with foreign platforms and see what users actually want. Which is refreshing, because usually when a government says, we're listening to users, what they mean is, we're ignoring them, but more efficiently this time. Now, to be clear, this isn't anti-exchange. It's not about breaking up businesses or regulating crypto into a coma. It's about checking whether charging 0.25% per trade on both sides, plus withdrawal fees, plus gas, plus convenience fees, is maybe a bit much, don't you think? And let's be honest here, if you're a Korean day trader trying to scalp a few bucks on altcoins, those fees add up quicker than a TikTok trading course. Now, for Bitcoin, this kind of scrutiny is actually a good sign. It means that regulators are starting to understand that crypto isn't going away, but that doesn't mean that exchanges get a free pass to run every trade through a toll booth. Now, if other countries follow suit, we might actually end up with a crypto market that's both efficient and fair. And for Bitcoin, that's the kind of structural maturity that leads to deeper liquidity and wider adoption. Not to mention fewer fees so high you think it was a wire transfer from 1998. Hated those. And finally, Samson Mao, former Blockstream exec and current evangelist for getting governments to buy Bitcoin before it was cool, is now setting his sights on France. because nothing says financial revolution quite like the country that invented the guillotine. At the BTC Prague conference, Mao met with French lawmaker Sarah Nafo, who apparently isn't just pro-Bitcoin, she's going full El Salvador. The two discussed building a strategic Bitcoin reserve for France and exploring regulatory frameworks that don't treat Bitcoin like a public health hazard. After the meeting, Mao took to X and declared that he was looking forward to starting a nation-state Bitcoin adoption wave in France and maybe in all of Europe, which is a nice way of saying somebody in this bureaucratic soup needs to grow a spine and start stacking sats. Nafo, she agreed. On X, she called Mao an expert on Bitcoin adoption by states, noting that he previously advised the president of El Salvador, aka the guy who turned volcanoes into money printers. She also name-dropped Michael Saylor, calling him visionary and ambitious, and hinted at many projects for France and Europe coming soon. So, yeah, the baguette may be soft, but France's Bitcoin pitch is getting harder. France isn't starting from zero either. In fact, back in March, state-owned bank BPI France allocated 25 million euro to crypto-related investments. And on June 3rd, Paris-based blockchain group bought 624 BTC for around 60.2 million euro, bringing their total stash to over 1,400 Bitcoin. So while the government's still talking, the private sector is already buying the dip. With that being said, Europe's regulatory vibe remains a little confused. The MiCA framework, the European Union's long-awaited attempt at regulating crypto, went live back in December of 2024. And while it technically provides rules, it says almost nothing about Bitcoin and state treasuries, which is kind of like writing traffic laws and forgetting stop signs entirely. Meanwhile, US exchanges like Coinbase and Gemini are moving in aggressively. Coinbase is finalizing its license in Luxembourg, where crypto companies are labeled high risk for money laundering, but still get licenses anyway. Gemini, led by the Winklevi twins, is close to finishing approval in Malta after already securing an MiFID2 license. Now, Malta's financial regulator defended their speed, saying that they've been doing this for years and actually know what they're doing. Now, which is a refreshing change of pace in a European Union landscape where most regulators move slower than a cold transaction on dial-up. So while Europe figures out whether Bitcoin is digital gold or digital tax fraud, France might actually be leading the charge, assuming, of course, they don't hold another 6 years of strategic dialogue first. We're taking a break, but when we're back, more Blockchain Report after this. News this morning, you can check that out right at the RoxomTV X handle. But Donald Trump has come out and said that he is interviewing candidates to replace Fed Chair Jerome Powell, and he called Powell an average mentally person and low IQ for what he does, which first off we know is just a hilarious Trump thing to say. But why is this breaking news? Well, we know that Fed Chair Jerome Powell has been apprehensive, or too late Powellers, I think is what Donald calls him, toward dropping rates. And Donald Trump is itching for that. Why? Because if he drops rates, that means people are going to be more interested in investing in what are considered higher risk assets, aka Bitcoin, the stock market specifically within the tech sector, the NASDAQ, etc. So if, in fact, he were to replace Jerome Powell with someone of his own choosing, you could almost guarantee that that is going to mean lower rates in the near future, which means more money and liquidity is going to be pumped into the system, which means we can probably expect more Bitcoin buys on the horizon than we are already seeing currently. As I also believe in breaking news, just while we're on it, GameStop just announced that they are going to be raising $450 million to additional $450 million to bring their total funding for their own Bitcoin treasury to $2.7 billion. So the writing is on the wall here, gang. Jerome Powell looks like he might have one foot out the door, and I don't know who President Trump is looking to replace him, but you can rest assured that whoever it is is going to be looking to cut rates, which I gotta say means orange pill, go up. Now, Jerome Powell actually also had his own comment on the industry this morning. If we can go to that tweet here really quick, I think it's right below there. Yeah, saying that Bitcoin and the crypto industry is becoming much more mainstream. So for all those orange pill naysayers out there, I gotta ask you, what else do you want? The United States government is going to be putting Bitcoin on their own reserve system. The state of Texas is actively buying and acquiring Bitcoin to put in their reserves. BlackRock and Larry Fink, I think, are the largest Bitcoin holders in the world aside from Satoshi himself. We have every day there are new publicly traded companies buying Bitcoin to put on their own balance books. And now it looks like on top of all this, we might have a new Fed chair in the near future who will be more inclined to lower rates, pump up orange coin, and continue this mainstream adoption that we have been seeing happen in real time and fast in just the past couple of months since Donald took office for his second but non-consecutive term. So there are a lot of interesting, exciting things on the horizon for the orange pill crowd right now, and we are really watching it evolve in real time, and it is exciting. So what's happening next game? We are going to take one more break, but when we are back, we are going to bullish, bearish, or BS, where we diagnose the top stories of the day and determine whether or not today is looking good, bad, or otherwise for our beautiful Bitcoin. So stay tuned. You won't want to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, before we get over to bullish, bearish, or BS, it is 9:52 p.m. on this Wednesday morning. Let's go over the market really quick and check how things are moving and shaking. Right now, Bitcoin still hovering above 107,000. We were kind of in that mid 107, 108 range earlier. Looks like we've taken a little bit of a drawback, but nothing to really note as of yet. 107,000 currently. Ethereum, also, a little bit of a downturn this morning, just barely above 2,400 bucks. XRP down about 1% this morning. Cardano also down almost 4% now, hovering just beneath 57 cents a coin. And Dogecoin sitting right around 16 cents a pop. Over in TradFi, let's take a look at the stonk market, see if it's doing any better. Right now, the Dow Jones is down about 100 points this morning, sitting right beneath 43,000. The NASDAQ Composite up slightly, about $43 on the day. Not a lot moving or shaking there. And the S&P 500 is hovering just above that $6,000 mark. Not a ton happening in TradFi. MicroStrategy, it is up because Bitcoin is up. We know that they are often working together in tandem, as we have seen here for the past couple of weeks and months, as they're sitting up ahead $8 on the day, right around that 385 level. Coinbase is also up a percentage point this morning. Tesla is down about 4.5%. People are not liking seeing what they're seeing from Elon right now. He must be playing a little too much Diablo. Nvidia is up nearly 3%, 3.5% on the day. And GameStop still chilling right around that $23 mark. That is our market rundown. Let's close up the show with bullish, bearish, or BS. Run the stinger. Camera one. Let's do it. All right, fam, it's that time of the show where we wrap everything up with a nice little bow and determine if today is looking bullish, bearish, or it's just a bunch of BS, and how it means for Bitcoin moving forward. First up, we have Texas. They just passed a law creating a taxpayer-funded Bitcoin reserve. They already cut a $10 million check for it, making them the first U.S. state to actually buy BTC and not just tweet about it. I mean, come on, gang, this is supremely bullish, right? I mean, when a state government goes from, hey, what's crypto, to here's $10 million of taxpayer money to buy crypto, that, my friends, is a massive vote of confidence, and it sets a huge precedent going forward and could trigger an absolute domino effect with other states following suit, which means more demand, less supply, and upward pressure on the Bitcoin price. The first domino fell, it's Texas, and they ain't just talking, they're stacking, and that's bullish, cowboy and cowgirls out there. Next up, we have the House is debating whether or not to fuse two major crypto regulation bills. Of course, we're talking about the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, and they're looking to make them into one super mega bill. Meanwhile, Donald Trump wants it passed as is to protect his family's stablecoin project, and some lawmakers are sweating it. Ooh, this one, I'm feeling slightly bullish on it, okay? I mean, say what you want about DC dysfunction, but this is the closest we've ever come to actual nationwide crypto rules. A unified legal framework gives institutions clarity, confidence, and likely opens the door to major capital inflows going forward. So the regulatory fog is clearing, sharks can finally see in the water, and that is bullish for Bitcoin, baby. 2 bullish, 0 bearish, 0 BS, 1 more to go. Lastly, we have Michael Saylor, our Lord and Saylor. He is offering strategies. There he is, you crafty little guy. Michael Saylor is offering strategies Bitcoin credit model to the Federal Housing Finance Agency, essentially saying, hey, let's underwrite mortgages using Bitcoin as collateral. I am incredibly bullish on this, and here's why. As nuts as it might sound initially, until you realize the guy pitching it owns over 590,000 Bitcoin and knows how to turn debt into Satoshis, okay? If adopted, this would inject Bitcoin into the housing finance system, bringing real-world utility, demand, and long-term price support, not to mention just integrating Bitcoin further into traditional banking systems. So I am super bullish on this. I mean, Bitcoin-backed mortgages, it's giving us major adoption vibes. So I am super bullish on that. So today, our score, 3 bullish, 0 bearish, 0 BS, which means today is definitively bullish, baby. And I'm bringing out the money guns and we're going to camera too. All right, Bitcoin's at 107K, state governments are buying, and Congress is regulating. All the while, Saylor's trying to tokenize your mortgage. We are deep, deep into the upside zone, baby. As always, thanks for tuning in to the Blockchain Report. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and me at Hank at RoxomTV on X, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Rumble, and yeah, even Blue Sky. And I will see all of you fellow degens tomorrow for more crypto chaos. Enjoy your Wednesday. See you mañana. Woo!